Welcome to Fantasy Fanline.
Hey, yo.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fantasy Fanline. I am your host, Greg Scalera, here with my co-host, Sanchi Value. Happy WrestleMania, everybody, or happy Colossal Tussle, for those of you in the know. Sanch, how you doing, man? How you celebrating Mania weekend?
Merry Christmas, Greg. I'm pumped. I'm going to get some Steve Weisers in me right after the show, and I'm going to plop my ass on the couch, and I'm not leaving. So
I'm too ahead of you, man. I was pre-gaming with some Steve Weisers this morning. I'm ready to rock. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to Fantasy Fanline. We are traditionally a fantasy football call-in show. During the NFL season, we have different experts on every week, and we open up the phone lines for you, the listeners, to call in and chat with our expert guests to get advice on your league, your rosters, your trades, your waiver moves. We're here for you, whatever you need. But during the off season, we're doing some crossover mock draft episodes where we bring on quote unquote experts, content creators, podcasters, writers from some other genres to come in and have some fun with us while we wait for NFL season. Because I really didn't think we were going to have a lot to talk about this time of year. Obviously, the NFL offseason this year has been nuts. So we'll do a traditional fantasy football episode maybe later this month or right after the draft. Just this morning, dude, Devontae Parker to the Patriots. Did you see that?
Yeah, dude.
Like, as I was getting ready for the show. Yeah.
That first football show is going to be jam-packed. So if you do fantasy football, you're a fan of the NFL, I highly recommend you tune into that. We'll have a bunch of information and opinions on where the season's going for you.
Yeah. A lot to unpack from the last couple of weeks. But in the meantime, it is WrestleMania weekend, as we've discussed. So we are celebrating by doing a wrestling mock draft with some special guest friends of ours. We're going to bring them on right now. First coming on, Ralph Saro. Dude, I'm going to rearrange our boxes here. Ralph, happy to have you on, man. Ralph comes in from the In Hops We Trust show. Dude, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, how many belts you're wearing, what your show is about? Give us an introduction.
Thank you guys so much for having me, Greg, Sanchi. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm actually a big fan of you guys. I've been listening to you guys for a while, so it's an honor to be here. In House We Trust actually went through a rebranding as recently as yesterday. With them voting to legalize marijuana federally, we decided to go from hop to hemp. So we are now officially In Hemp We Trust.
Now, is that for real? Because that was an April 1st announcement, and I was looking at it like with my eyes squinted. I was like, I need to figure this out for tomorrow when I introduce him. Is this an April Fool's joke? Is it a real rebrand? Are you going to tell us even if it is a joke? Because I've known you long enough to know that you're the master of improv, and I don't know if you're telling the truth or not.
Well, I'm not going to show my whole hand, Greg, but I will say this. If you do go on our channel, which right now is titled In Hemp We Trust, ellipses, formerly In Hops We Trust Film, you will see that it is, in fact, still In Hemp We Trust. So, again, I'm not going to go any further than that into it right now. But if you're a fan of beer, we still have all of our original In Hops We Trust content on there. If you want to learn more about breweries maybe near you, go check it out. We got great episodes on there all throughout New Jersey and New York right now.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I was actually watching your web series on YouTube. I don't know if you could watch it anywhere else, but I'm a subscriber on YouTube, and I watched the entire first season, which wrapped up, I think, towards the end of last calendar year.
Yep.
It's fantastic. I mean, there's really nobody else I'd rather hear talk about craft beer. And my beer drinking history goes way back with you. I'm just going to tell a quick story before I bring in our final guest here. My favorite Ralph beer story. We went on a trip. We've drank a lot of beers together, but the best one was the Kennedy Center theater trip. Our college got invited to a Kennedy Center theater competition, which we were not allowed to drink beer at. And we leave our hotel room after checking in to go to some welcome conference. And I look at Ralph, and it's like the dead of winter. So he's got a beanie on and like a thick jacket, and his beanie is just standing up like 6 inches straight with a kind of like a cylinder under it. And I was like, Ralph, you have a beer under that hat? And he was like, no. And I was like, you clearly, like, obviously have a beer. You were like, no, dude, I don't know what we're talking about. And everybody who stopped to ask you, like, Ralph, dude, what's on your hat? You're like, I have no idea. So we get to the conference, we sit down, lo and behold, out comes a Steve Weiser from under the hat. He cracks it in the back row. I was like, you are the worst. And I don't think we had any trouble with it, right? You got away with that.
Nope, nobody said a word.
Yeah, there's a picture of that somewhere. I have to try and dig it up and post it on our social media later. But, dude, happy to have you on the show with us, along with our final guest of the day, Michael Tivey. Dude, do you go by Mike or Michael professionally? I'm just going to call you Tivey all day.
Yeah, everyone just calls me Tivey, so let's just rock and roll with that.
Tivey comes to us from World Wrestling Flashbacks. Dude, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your channel? Another channel that I'm a huge fan of since your inception, I believe. I was probably one of your first follows because I remember talking with you about it when you were planning it.
Yeah.
Some of the best wrestling content out there. Tell us about it, Tivey.
So it started as a toy photography page. I do it with my friend John Calandra, who's a videographer, and it started to take off, and we've linked up with like Matt Cardona and Justin Credible and a few other random people from the business. But we started doing TikTok and doing these flashback facts. So we do like little 30-second tidbits of information. Just want to spread positivity. Wrestling has so much negative behavior in like the fan base. So we just want to spread like positive wrestling stuff. It should be an awesome escape. It shouldn't be something that we criticize to the end of the earth. You know, I think it's just something that's fun. We have to remember the first time that we fell in love with wrestling, which is 9 times out of 10 when we were kids, you know.
That is a beautiful mission statement, and I do find that I enjoy wrestling as a fan probably more when I stay off of communities like Reddit and things. Don't get me wrong, I love Reddit. This is not a Reddit hate show.
No.
But as far as some of those communities go with the actual current product, I'm like, do I actually hate the product, or am I just being influenced by all the people kind of talking about it on the internet and what's wrong with it?
Squared circle is the worst.
Nah,
man. You can't even make your own decisions when you read through it.
It has its moments, but sometimes I'm like, man, were the 90s really better wrestling, or did we just remember it better because there wasn't an internet to crap on it while it was happening?
Well, it's like movie reviews, right? It's like if you hear something so many times, you're like, yeah, I guess it does suck. And you feel like bullied into like a corner of like hating something, but like, I don't know, you just got to like what you like. And I think now is like a great time to just like be an unapologetic wrestling fan, you know?
Preach. Couldn't agree more, man. Well, I appreciate you both joining us. We'll plug your content a little more at the end of the show, let the people know where to find you. But we are here to draft today, fellas. Not only is it WrestleMania weekend, it is Wrestling Draft Day. Ralph, I know you were a very experienced drafter. Ralph has played in a fantasy league with me for years, and briefly also with Sanch. I don't think you guys even know that.
The ESPN league?
Yeah, you were both in it at the same time for like a minute years ago before Sanch got too cool for us and he left for greener pastures. Tivey, I don't think has ever played fantasy football. Maybe this is your gateway.
Yeah.
Dude, do you watch any NFL? Do you have any interest?
I don't, and my entire family's like big football, you know, fans.
Well,
and
if you're ever in a situation where you're like hanging out with them and you need like football things to say, just text me and I'll just feed you lines.
Yeah, perfect.
Ralph is showing off some bling over there. Ralph and Sanch, I know, are both Giants fans in misery and solidarity together. I am a Bears fan, and Tivey, we'll see. You know, maybe by the end of the show, you could pick a team and run with it.
Yeah.
So we're going to aim for about 8 rounds of drafting today. For those of you who don't know how these drafts work, I mean, you probably kind of do just from watching wrestling and seeing the brand drafts. You get the idea. We're going to go top to bottom. It's going to go Ralph, Tivey, Sanch, and me. And we're not doing a snake draft. We're going round robin. So that means at the end of each round, we start from the top again, which sucks for me at the back of the order. But you know what? That's the price you pay when you're being a good host and letting you guys go first. So
I feel like there's a $1 million man joke in there.
I'll come up with it when I draft him later in the show because I'm a huge $1 million man mark, so I'm probably going to reach for him a little bit. Drafting means that once one of us takes somebody, they're off the board. So when Ralph takes, nails at 101 overall,
Virgil.
Unfortunately, when Virgil goes off the board, we cannot take him again later. We're not drafting tag teams. We're drafting individual wrestlers. And we are not drafting versions of wrestlers, which means that once somebody takes Biker Undertaker, you can't take the dead man with your next pick, unfortunately. Welcome to everybody tuning in on YouTube. We got the comments pouring in already. Go Carlo is stoked for WrestleMania. So is Sebastian. A lot of WrestleMania love coming in. Terrell says, "Yo, what's up, Sanch?"
Team Money, what's going on, baby? That's
If Mordecai doesn't go first, we riot. I mean, that's up to Ralph. I gave him the 101. I told him last night that he could sleep on it. Ralph, if you haven't considered Mordecai, you might want to do so at this point just to appease the masses so we don't have any problems here. Two dudes with Sanchitudes, ain't it the truth? And everyone has a price. I remember hearing a story that the $1 Million Man gimmick was basically just Vince McMahon. I think that was on the Bruce Pritchard podcast, one of my favorite listens. And he told a story about they were on a plane ride once, and Vince McMahon paid the guy in front of him to like change seats or to shut up or something. And Bruce was like, "Oh my God, Ted DiBiase is just Vince McMahon." I think I've loved the character even more since then. So, gentlemen, do we have any questions before we get rolling here? Y'all know how this works. All right. In that case, Ralph, you are officially on the clock. I got these sweet little tickers just to help us kind of keep track of things here.
So legit this is right now. Well, I considered Mordecai for a second. It's not who I picked. Wrestling has been a part of my life basically since I was in elementary school. You know, I remember the first time I watched Monday Night Raw, and then it immediately switched, right? I was no longer pretending I had a lightsaber on the playground. I was suddenly clotheslining kids. Naturally, I got sent to the principal's office a lot in elementary school. But that continued, you know, throughout high school. Me and my friends would wrestle each other in the senior lounge, like put big blood packets on our head and we'd whack each other with plastic chairs.
I can testify that this continued through college.
And through college, yes. What's funny about the high school thing, too, is we had cameras in the senior lounge, right? So there's security guards, like, watching us. They never broke it up. So I assume they were just into it.
So what you're telling me is that there's footage out there. There's Botchamania footage of young Ralph.
Somewhere, taking a bump into a concrete wall.
We're going to need that. We're going to need that video.
For the Fan Line archives.
All right, so he might be canceled today.
That's a great start.
Back in the 1980s, if you asked any moron child who their favorite wrestler was, or who the best wrestler was, they would probably tell you some stupid answer like Hulk Hogan. If you asked any pro wrestler who the best wrestler of the 1980s was, they would tell you it's the styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, woo! The nature boy! Ric Flair, number one, baby.
Ric Flair rightfully comes off the board 101. Look, there's a lot of different ways you could go with this pick, and it kind of depends on what you value as a drafter, right? Like, are you picking the biggest draw, the best talent, the best promo? Ric Flair was all of that, right? He was the working man's champion through the 80s, one of the biggest names in the history of the sport. Never going to be another one like him, kind of except for Charlotte. Tivey, Sanch, what do you guys think of the pick? You like him there at 101?
That's the right pick. I can't say anything else. The man invented swag.
Seriously.
For sure.
All right. Tivey, that brings you up, man.
Yeah. So I was introduced during the New Generation era, which obviously isn't the most popular era, but it was the most colorful era of wrestling. And my champion growing up was Bret the Hitman Hart. So I'm going to have to go with the excellence of execution. The best there is, best there was, the best there ever will be. Bret Hart.
I am so glad you took him because I was afraid he was going to fall and be kind of a value, and I was determined to not draft him today. Not because I didn't like him at the time, but just the years and years of interviews and things with him and his book. And I was like, I have such a hard time listening to him, man. It's
this Bible right here.
It's 400 or 500 something pages of just complaining, and like I probably would too if I was Bret Hart. He had obviously some tough breaks kind of late in his career. Career arguably cut short due to Bill Goldberg. Obviously the tragedy of Owen Hart. Like I think that I would be as bitter as he is, but and we have no right? Like as fans,
family.
Yeah, we have no right to tell him to let it go. It's just. I mean, the fans are loving this pick and siding with Bret here. Bret got screwed by Bret, in my opinion. Bret screwed Bret. I don't know if I'm the first person ever to say that, but that is my take. John Urbanski coming in. I think he's calling travesty on that 102 overall pick. Dude, did you think he reached on Bret? Because if we're talking workers, he's probably he's talking about my hate for Bret Hart. Bret's 97 run was one of the best ever. So there you go, another +1 in support of your pick. The people love it. Sanch, that puts you in an interesting position here at 103. Ric Flair, Bret Hart off the board. Some of the best workers of all time gone.
I can't believe I got the best in-ring performer at 1.3, baby.
I'm just
The
gonna start writing his name.
The Heartbreak Kid, Mr. WrestleMania, HBK, Sweet Chin Music. At 1.3, I'm taking him all day. He wasn't the best in the locker room unless you were really close with him. Clearly, if you go back and listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, he was kind of a real jerk. But you go watch those matches and they're timeless, flawless.
Look, there are 4 or 5 guys in the locker room who would strongly disagree with you and thought he was just the best backstage. But yeah, the legacy of Shawn Michaels, I think, is just the best worker in ring of all time. And one of the worst people in the business. I know that he has changed a lot over the years, so I hate to keep kind of, harping on his reputation when he was a worker. But that's what we're talking about today, was when they were wrestling. So
it's a wrestling draft, not a personality draft. So I'll take the best.
That's right. That would. I think there are a couple of picks that would not show up in a personality draft that are going to come off the board today. We'll get to those later. But so we got Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, 1, 2, and 3. Urbanski, I like where your head is at. I am on the clock next. I think I have to do it here. I don't think I can let Hulk Hogan fall out of the first round. It seems, he's not going to win any competitions as a worker. But as far as legacy, draw, cachet, mainstream name value, that guy put the industry on his back in the 80s. Would we have what we have today without Hulk Hogan? I don't think so. No. And for all the flack he gets about his in-ring work, the guy was a master psychologist, right? Like, he didn't just have the look. He knew how to play the audience every second he was in front of a camera. Arguably the greatest face of all time and the greatest heel of all time as 2 separate entities. I'm taking Hulk Hogan at 104, and I feel like I just walked out of here with the greatest steal of all time.
I got to say, I rewatched like WrestleMania 1 through 3 just this past week, and obviously wrestling has changed like a crazy amount, just like the in-ring work and all that sort of stuff, but no one was more over, and just the audience was so cool, like seeing the reactions, people just losing their mind to see Hulk Hogan.
He changed what wrestling was, man. There were a lot of territorial rock stars back in the day, but Hulk Hogan was the first like American, like nationwide rock star of the wrestling business. He was a household name. People who didn't know what wrestling was knew who Hulk Hogan was. The world had never seen anything like that, or the industry certainly hadn't seen anything like that at the time. And, relevant to this day, has gone through his trials with cancellation as well in recent years, but what he did for the business and his lasting legacy. I mean, there's not enough time in this show to talk about Hulk Hogan in terms of the industry history. You got anyone listening to this knows everything I'm saying right now. So I'm just going to stop talking about him, and I'm going to take him at 104. And Ralph, that brings you back around to the top of the second round.
Real quick.
Yeah, shoot, Sanj.
If it's anyone else at Bash at the Beach 96, it wouldn't have worked out. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like,
1000%
Hulk Hogan changed the game. And as we said, it's not a personality contest. It's a pro wrestling draft. And
I hate to interrupt, but we're going to take a pause at the back of the first here to welcome our first caller to the show.
Okay.
Caller, can you hear us? You're on Fantasy Fan Line.
At 1.3, Sanji got the biggest whiner in wrestling history. That heartbreak kid, Shawn Michaels. If he didn't lose his damn smile, we don't lose Bret Hart to WCW.
Sanj, what do you have to say for yourself?
Bret screwed Bret.
Refuse to drop the title to Vader. Refuses to drop to Vader. Wants to work with his friends. Loses his smile when he finds out he's going to lose to Bret at WrestleMania 13. But you know what? We got Austin versus Hart.
There we go.
There he is. Tivey's got a sick action figure of him. Caller, I as much as we're trying to keep personalities out of the draft order here, there's really not. There's a small handful of big personalities from that era who didn't come with that sort of baggage, right? Shawn Michaels was worth it, in my opinion. He backed it up in the ring. He had the workmanship, he had the personality, the look, the attitude, the promos. I mean, he was hard. He was hard for people to deal with in the ring, but I wasn't in the ring. I wasn't in the industry, so I loved him. I thought he was great at home.
You know
Guys-
what? His second run was a lot better. His second run when he came back was a lot better than his first.
How about his
Agreed.
third run once he was bald and he came back for like a day?
Saudi Arabia.
We don't
Arabia.
discuss that. We don't discuss that. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about Ric Flair's ass in TNA. We don't talk about Mick Foley wrestling in TNA.
We don't talk about Bruno, and we don't talk about bald Shawn Michaels. So those are the rules of this show from moving forward, ladies and gentlemen. Caller, thanks for weighing in, man. Anything else you want to say to the people before we move on here?
Brett's better than Shawn.
All right, there you have it.
Oh,
Brett's better than
not it.
Sean, and he
That
was
ain't
drafted
it, G.
accordingly.
That's
So,
the way we drafted, yeah. So
dude, thanks for calling in, and he's gone.
We'll never
We actually have
know.
another caller in the room. Hey, caller, you are on Fantasy Fan Line. Would you like to weigh in on our draft so far? One round in. Take
Hey,
that as-
what's up? I haven't really been able to follow the draft. I am at work right now currently.
Well, I will recap it for you. 101, Ric Flair, then Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan.
Oh, that sounds like a typical top 5 in my opinion.
It's four, buddy. 4 horsemen.
But,
That's a King
I
Kong
just wanted
movie, yeah.
I just wanted to just stop by, say I love the show. I've been a supporter since day one for fantasy. And if no one knows, this is Tommy Donuts.
Tommy Donuts.
Tommy
we
Donuts.
appreciate you, man. I believe
course we do.
historically our first caller on our first episode. Welcome back.
Asking about kickers.
Thank you.
Hey, man, do you have any input on who should come off the board next year?
Well, I know Sanchi Valley knows, and I'm not sure anyone else knows. I'm not the biggest wrestling nerd out there, but I just want to say one thing only before I go.
Uh-oh. Sounds like a promo's coming.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Tommy Donuts, thank you for that input. Appreciate you calling in from work. I hope your boss doesn't catch you. If he does, tell him to tune into the show. We could always use more listeners.
If he does, put him in the torture rack. No biggie.
Ralph, you are on the clock, my man.
all right. Well, this is why you can't go into these things with a plan. All right. This draft has not shaken out the way that I thought it would at all.
Same.
Yeah, I agree.
But having said that, I'm very fortuitous that it's gone the way that it has. Because Greg, your pick sets mine up perfectly. It's a great transition, right? Because even though I was born in the late 1980s, I didn't get to experience Hulkamania like at its peak, right? But there was a superstar, if you will, whose peak I did experience in full force. And the first time that glass shattered and he strutted out there, leather vest, fucking black shorts, the black boots, bald head, looking like a bad MFer. That was it. I was hooked on professional wrestling. So
Bill Goldberg off the board.
Also a great wrestler in his own right, but no, I'm going to go with the man, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Ralph, starting off the draft with Ric Flair and Stone Cold Steve Austin, I don't know if you could have scripted it better yourself, man.
I'm telling you.
Austin could have been 1.1 easily. So
Oh yeah.
can't
Yeah,
really
we-
beat that start.
We opened it up on Instagram to our followers to see who they thought should go 101. We had a couple of Steve Austin answers. We had a Shawn Michaels, a Hogan. Surprisingly, Ric Flair was absent from that listener feedback, but I think he was the right pick in hindsight.
Yeah.
Austin falling to the second is just a testament to this being a short draft, right? He is arguably on everybody's Mount Rushmore of greatest of all time. Changed the game in probably a way that maybe only Hulk Hogan did in the prior decade. You can make an argument for WWE losing the Monday Night War without Stone Cold Steve Austin, assuming nobody else stepped up, right? Like, it's hard to speak hypotheticals, but dude carried that era on his back. Sanch, Tivey, what do you guys think of the pick?
It's a
I got a
steal.
Stone Cold tattoo, so I'm. So
It
Yeah.
could have been the first pick.
Incredible value. Stone Cold falling into the second round makes me think 8 rounds is probably not going to be enough, but we'll see how it goes here. Tivey, you're up, man. There seems like a couple of really obvious guys on the board here.
yeah,
It's a tough choice.
yeah. I'm looking at my action figures and things that I have around me to try to draw some inspiration because they are the guys that I love, right? Being that he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2022, Mark Calloway, The Undertaker. And actually, I have a picture here that I took in August 1998. Awesome. That's Stone Cold and The Undertaker, SummerSlam, Highway to Hell. I'm going to go with The Undertaker. But I'm going to specifically go with 1998, just pre-Ministry of Darkness Undertaker.
I'll keep that in mind.
We're not doing different versions, but in my mind.
When I'm building the graphics of everybody's teams to put up for everyone to vote on after the fact, I'll use that specific Undertaker. So thank you for clarifying.
There you go.
And in case I haven't mentioned this yet, we are going to post all these rosters, if you will, at the end of the show on our social media channels. We are at Fantasy Fanline on every platform. You can hop on and let us know who won the draft, who lost it, who you agree with, who you don't agree with. So if you haven't already subscribed to us, we're on, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Only thing we don't have is TikTok. Tivey, you have a TikTok, right? You're streaming live right now?
We are. We got 680 likes and a few other people. They're having their own conversation right now.
What do they think? You want to share any TikTok feedback?
Let's see here. Sorry, it's on my phone. It's all the way up here.
It's all good. It's a great shot of your beard right now.
Oh yeah. No, they're talking about Mania tonight and just trying to figure out who's going to be facing Seth. So they're on their
do you guys want to call your shot on who's going to face Seth tonight while we're live on the air here?
Cody.
You think Cody's coming in?
I hope so.
All right. Ralph, thoughts?
Match of the weekend right there.
Brooklyn Brawler, 100%.
Brooklyn Brawler. Okay. All right. You can still come in and do a job like nobody's business.
Brooklyn Brawler as Doink. The few times that he was done.
Specifically, okay. Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot that happened.
Or Kimchi. Wasn't that the guy's name? The one came out with Kamala?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He did that too, but he didn't wrestle, right? So.
Well, Sanch, Doink is still on the board and you are up. So he's yours for the taking if you want him here in the third pick of the second round.
What about Dink? No one took him yet either. I really wanted the Undertaker.
I think you could probably get him at the back of the draft, Dink.
I really wanted the Undertaker. Another great pick. All these picks are going to be great picks. I can't let this guy.
Norman Smiley.
Herbs thinks it's going to be Norman Smiley taking the Mr. spot at Mania.
Disco Inferno.
I'd watch that.
Knows? Anyway, I can't let him drop any longer. Mr. Hollywood, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, my absolute favorite on the mic, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment today, the people's elbow, the rock bottom. As a kid, he was larger than life. I still look up to the guy. He's 10 out of 10, like perfect human, man. Like I want to be just like The Rock. Jack, nice and intimidating and funny, and it's just great guy, and I'm happy to have him on my team.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let Tivey and Ralph weigh in on this because The Rock was the clear end of my tier for like the top tier guys, and now I have to figure out what I'm gonna do with my next pick. So Tivey, ask away.
What iteration of The Rock? Like what era of The Rock would you?
Did he have
I
hair?
Think
Did he not have hair?
A cooler, a little dynamic there. You know,
kind of like when he was just letting loose on the mic, like before that match with Austin, where Vince turned on Austin at Mania. Yeah. When he was just, it doesn't matter what your name is, or shut up, bitch. Stephanie, like when he was just
that classic Rock phrase.
Yeah, like Rudy Poo, candy ass, turn that some bitch sideways. Like it's just all 10 out of 10 to me. It's timeless to me, and it still holds up. Hilarious, love the guy, and
he sang about pie.
He sang about pie.
Sang surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Like not a terrible singer. That guy could have had a career in any area of show business he chose to. I'm glad he picked wrestling before movies.
Can't go wrong with prime Attitude Era Rock. You can't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One of the all-time greats. So I feel like everybody obvious is off the board. Some people might be watching this screaming somebody that I'm not thinking of at the top of my head. So
for sure.
This is where things get interesting. I am going to go here. I really wanted to get some variety on my team, but I'm not going to have it to this point because I'm taking Andre the Giant at the back of the second round. He is one of my all-time favorites. I have a short handful of favorites who I don't feel like are worth being drafted here. Andre stands out as the one who is worth a second round pick. Just an absolute game changer. Came before my time. His peak did, before I kind of came into wrestling. But I grew up kind of on those 80s, late 70s videotapes of wrestling.
Yeah.
I think before I even got into the current stuff in the 90s, I was watching old stuff, which is why I came up on like the Hulk Hogan, Andre kind of stuff. So he was kind of the great attraction of that era of wrestling, right? He wasn't like a regular character. He was somebody who came around every once in a while. And when he did, it was just magic. It was just, he was one of one in the world as far as wrestling fans were considered. And they would have paid anything to go see him. And, you know, great businessman, great mind for business. He had everything. What do you guys think?
I think you're just going to draft the whole WrestleMania 3 card, huh?
Thinking about it. If you guys keep letting me have them, sure. Tivey, Ralph, any thoughts on the legacy of Andre, the pick in the second?
You can't go wrong taking, you know, someone who left such a lasting impact on wrestling as a whole, like Andre the Giant, not just in WWE, but, you know, worldwide. You think about all the stuff that he's done. It's can't argue with it.
All right. Yeah. Travis Hall agrees. Good pick. Thank you, Travis. Good looking out, man. I paid him to say that. Ralph, you are back on the clock.
Okay. So again, Greg, you're not going to get everyone on WrestleMania 3 because I am taking arguably one of the two men that had the best match. Yeah, I'm going the Randy Savage.
What a great pick at the top of the third. I am, as Sebastian is asking on YouTube, what are round two results? I do have a draft sheet that I'm going to share here just so we can kind of get a sense of where we're at.
Beautiful.
So just to recap, Ralph has Ric Flair, Steve Austin, Tivey, Bret Hart, Undertaker, Sanch, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, and I have Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. So I'm going to go ahead right now and add the Macho Man to Ralph's roster. I don't think I could fit his full name in that column. I will fix it later. Randy Savage off the board. Love the pick. One of my personal favorites ever. Guys, what do you think? Randy Savage off the board, top of the second.
Rob, your team is perfect so far. Like, just everyone's falling to you, man. That was my.
I knew this was going to happen. I'm never going to live this down.
I'm speechless. We have to set up like a tourney now in like the new WWE game or whatever, and have the teams go at each other and see who wins out.
That would be some like next tier. We could set it up.
We'll just build them in No Mercy. Right? Stream it.
Yes.
Tivey, you were on the clock, my man.
Yeah, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Oh
wow.
Yeah. So when you started that off, I was like, oh, this is perfect. That, in terms of technicality, that match, beautiful and so close to what we'd get years later. Like they were so far ahead of the curve because we always talk about, like your Bretts and Sean's when it comes to like the lighter, more aerial kind of work. But my God, that's like such a classic.
It's the first classic WrestleMania match. Like
not like spectacle in terms of like Andre, the body slam, that kind of stuff. But this is like pure wrestling at its finest. So gotta say, the other half of that being Ricky Steamboat.
That's a big time pick there from a true wrestling fan, because I feel like in more of a mainstream draft, he would have fallen a little later, possibly gone undrafted. The real ones know Ricky Steamboat, one of the best of all time. I love seeing him go in the third, especially right after Macho Man. Couldn't have scripted it better if I tried.
And with Ric Flair, they had a lot of great matches.
And with Ric Flair. Yeah, dude, it's a great team. Sanch, what's up, man? Who you got?
Well, you said that was a big time pick, so I'm going to go with the best big man of all time and my personal favorite wrestler and another 2022 Hall of Famer, Big Van Vader, baby.
Oh, yes.
It's time.
My absolute favorite wrestler. I knew I could wait a couple rounds to snag him, and this is the spot where I'm going to do it. Great figure. Just the mask, the look, his feel, the energy, that old WCW run, coming out with the Mastodon helmet. It's smoking. He's beating people silly, man. Like doing moonsaults for his size. The Vader bomb, just matches he had with Sting. If you've never, the internet's a crazy place. So if you've never seen his work in Japan, get online and start downloading Vader's Japan matches. You won't be disappointed if you're a fan of wrestling. That's the best big man of all time. That's personally my favorite wrestler. Sebastian knows, and I'm happy to take him in the 3rd round. Add him to my squad.
Look, man, it was
WWE.
It was supernatural. Oh, Tivey, go ahead, weigh in on Vader.
No, just his career outside of WWE, everything before that, just incredible.
They didn't use him right.
No.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of casual fans kind of only know Vader from his time with with WWE, but that was not his peak. If you ever really want to go see his good stuff, it's out there on the internet, like Sanch said. And I feel like you don't hear Vader
in Japan.
You don't hear Vader discussed enough with the all-time greats. So this is kind of where personal preference starts to come into drafts, which is what makes it fun. I think he deserves every ounce of this pick. The way that he moved in his prime as a big man, like you said, the moonsaults, some of the stuff he did on the ground was just like, I didn't understand what I was looking at back in the day when I saw it. I was like, how is that even possible? These guys are not human. Like, he was one of those guys who came out and made you believe what you were watching. Perfect example of suspension of disbelief was Vader. You were like, I couldn't last a second in the ring with that guy, you know?
No chance. But it's a damn shame he didn't get in the hall when he was still here with us. Like, he should have been in way sooner. But either way, I'm happy for him and his family. They looked really happy last night, and it's a great Hall of Fame ceremony last night. That Taker speech, man, beautiful.
Yeah,
Dude got his eye knocked out, pushed it back in, and finished Big Ben
mid-match. I've never actually seen that, but I have read about it. Is there tape of it? Is it proved?
Yeah, there's tape of it. You can actually see his eye like bulging out of his face.
I'm gonna have to dig that up after the broadcast, preferably before I ate lunch. So that puts me on the clock here. I'm gonna take one of the greatest of all time. I felt like round 2 was a little early for him, but I love him at the back of the 3rd. Just the guy, and I'm seeing in our comments he's been discussed already as having reinvented himself time and time again, kept himself relevant, still killing it to this day. Y2J Chris Jericho coming off the board at the back of the 3rd for me here. We went to see, I'm not proud of this, but my wife and I, a week or two ago, went to see a production of Cats. We have a dear friend who was in the show. I had never seen it. Ralph knows who I'm talking about. The show was ridiculous. The production was great. And one of the characters came out in a glowing cutoff jacket. And I was like, Chris Jericho is a cat right there. He was like the showman character. And Kara, my wife, was like, what are you talking about? So I had to show her a picture for reference. Dude, Chris Jericho, I don't know if anybody in the history of wrestling, with the exception of maybe Macho Man Randy Savage, has more iconic imagery of their different looks over the years just burned into my memory. Like Chris Jericho, the ultimate showman, the ultimate worker, the ultimate promo. What's not to love? He was a little on the shorter side, managed to find plenty of success, multi-time world champion. Guys, what do you think of Jericho?
That's tough, man. That's
love it. Lionheart Jericho, Painmaker Jericho.
Every version.
Just
so good.
Walls of Jericho, man, one of the best.
I can't think of another wrestler who every reinvention worked.
Yep.
Crazy.
With the exception of maybe Matt Hardy, except for version 1, version 2. Yeah. Chris Jericho, man of 1,000 and how many holds? 1, 2? How many did he get up to?
3, I thought it was.
What about if you take out all the arm bars? How many does that bring him down to?
5 holds.
5 holds? All right. Ralph, that brings us back around to you. I feel like I just sniped you. I apologize for nothing. Who do you got?
No, it's okay. That's what happens in our other fantasy drafts as well, usually. I probably should have clarified this ahead of drafting, but this isn't just WWE, right? Where this is
no, sir.
Anytime, any era wrestling. Okay. Then I'm going to do a little thinking outside the box here and give honor to a person who's never been in WWE, maybe for a tryout here or there, but undoubtedly one of the greatest wrestlers going today. I am going to go with the Alpha and the Omega. Kenny Omega.
Awesome.
Love that pick. Really our first kind of non-WWE, WWF pick in the draft, guys. What do you think? Kenny Omega, top of the fourth.
Those New Japan matches, man, flawless. I can't say anything bad about Kenny Omega. He's definitely the best going today. I think he won Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah,
rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, how many years probably straight could you make a case for Kenny Omega being the best in the world? I mean, top of the industry, top of the game. Maybe someday he shows up in WWE. I don't really project it, but there are guys who came over who I never thought I would see there. So, never say never. I think he deserves the audience in WWE. I think he deserves that level of exposure, but not everybody needs it, and he doesn't need it. He deserves a spot on this list of all-time greats.
Yeah.
Tivey, you are up.
Heal up, Kenny. Get back.
That was a good one. That was a really good one. And I get really frustrated when people don't like Kenny Omega. I'm like, what is there not to like?
Do you not like pro wrestling?
Yeah,
those are just WWE marks who don't like Kenny Omega because they just
like
don't
why wouldn't you want everyone to succeed? Like, why wouldn't you want all the companies to do well? Anyway, that's another conversation. I'm gonna go Jushin Thunder Liger.
Oh,
wow. I wanted to get a mask in there, and there's some obvious masked choices, but
sure,
I love Jushin Thunder Liger and got to see him once. So yeah.
That's an awesome pick, man. Now we're having some fun. Now we're getting creative.
Yeah, when you start deep diving, when you get past the Hogans, it gets real
Look,
fun.
man, I did you guys a favor.
Those are perfect leaders.
I got him out of the way so you guys could have some fun and start taking Jushin Thunder Liger and Kenny Omega. So you're welcome. For the sake of the draft, I took one for the team in the back of the first. That's an awesome pick, man. I'm going to remind everybody listening right now that this is call-in show, 618 fan line. Our phone lines are open if you want to call in and weigh in on the Jushin Thunder Liger picks, the Kenny Omega picks. I was just checking the room. We don't have anybody waiting. Sanch, Ralph, what do you guys think of the pick?
Love it.
I remember going to the first takeover and the crowd pop for Jushin Thunder Liger was one of the loudest pops I've ever heard, and the guy's an absolute legend.
Great pick to do anyway.
It was definitely an unexpected pick, but I love it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a reach in terms of quality. Like, it feels like he belongs here. It was just a surprise to hear the name. Surprised to hear him as the first mask off the board over La Parka, to be honest. But, keeping us on our toes. Ultimo Dragon. Ultimo Dragon would have been a great pick, too. Sanch, you are on the clock.
Come on.
All right. Hey, yo. Rest in peace to the bad guy.
Dude.
We're gonna go with Razor Ramon, Scott Hall here. Very sad. But when it comes to his wrestling career, his legacy is gonna live on forever. That Razor's Edge is my favorite finisher ever. The promos he cut, even after the Razor gimmick, when he showed up on Nitro, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. It's just epic. The NWO run, there will never be another Outsiders. There'll never be another Scott Hall, and I'm happy to have him here.
So how many times in one draft can Sanch snipe me? So far, 2 out of 4. Scott Hall, my all-time favorite. I knew he'd come up sooner or later. Arguably the best non-world champion in the history of the industry, right? I mean, he didn't need the title. He was the coolest wrestler of his time, no matter what time it was, no matter where he went. Underrated,
oozing machismo, man. He was oozing machismo.
Underrated as a worker, as a mind for the business. I mean, even in recent years, you just hear more and more stories about the things he contributed, creatively, mentorship wise. He took his role as a veteran very seriously. I'm sure there was plenty not to like about him at the time, being around a guy with that much success and confidence. But man, if he didn't change the sport, change the game when he came over to WCW, just, again, not enough time on this show to talk about my love for Scott Hall as a worker, as a business mind. Tivey, Ralph, you guys want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? An absolute legend of the business. He's a part of one of the most polarizing factions behind the scenes, the Clique, sure.
The Clique.
But I mean, absolutely, when he went to WCW, that changed wrestling forever,
Yeah.
And if WWF doesn't have Stone Cold, I don't think they survive. I know the NWO run went off the rails because they didn't really have they let the too many chefs into the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
They have a clear vision of where they wanted to go with it. But in terms of what he's given to the business, look what he did for one of his friends, but still, 1, 2, 3 Kid. Are we talking about X-Pac today? If
No.
not Razor Ramon?
No chance.
Right? So, yeah. All time.
Yeah, Scott Hall was the ultimate non-mark, right? He did what was best for business. He saw 2-3 steps ahead, and I remember reading stories about that loss to 1 through 3K where Scott Hall was getting calls from his friends in the business like, did he actually catch you with his knee and like knock you out? Like, was that supposed to happen? He was like, no, man, I did the job, put him over. I like where he's going. I see a bright future for him, and he was that kind of guy. He was famously that guy who got along really well with other polarizing figures in the company who drew well, found success, like the Ultimate Warriors, the Bill Goldbergs, because he was the one not looking at it from a fan's perspective and saying, dude's making money, what's not to like? So, I could just talk about Scott Hall for the rest of the day. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move on here. That puts me at the back of the fourth. I don't know who I'm going to take because Scott Hall just went off the board. I am going to go with Eddie Guerrero here, back of the fourth. I think that I kind of came into my Eddie Guerrero fandom late in his life. I wish I could have been into him earlier and followed him more through the early days of WCW when kind of the light heavyweights were really revolutionizing the product of WCW television. But God, if Eddie wasn't just one of the best overall wrestlers I have ever seen in my entire life, I don't really know who you put above him in terms of, points for, except for maybe Chris Jericho, who was my previous pick, points for workmanship, for promos, for attitude, for look. R.I.P. Eddie Guerrero. What do you guys think of the pick there?
Prettiest frog splash in the game, man. Love the pick. Also one of my favorites. I was going to take him next round if he got back to me.
Yeah.
Good. Revenge. I feel like I finally got one over on you.
There you go. You got me.
All right, at the back of the fourth, here is what we've got so far. The fourth round was Kenny Omega, Jushin Thunder Liger, Scott Hall, Eddie Guerrero. I'll leave this up for another few seconds while Ralph collects himself, gets ready for his next pick. Just a reminder, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter as we speak. You can leave a comment, and we will see it here through the magic of technology, like this comment right here. John Urbanski weighs in and says 1, 2, 3 Kid benefited so much from Razor and Brett. Yes, he did, man. They saw something in him early on. He might go off the board later in this draft. 1, 2, 3 Kid, we will see. In the meantime, we're getting back to business here. Ralph is back on the clock. Dude, where are you going here?
All right. I'm at the point right now where there's so many different ways I can go. Obviously, we're not going to run out of names before this whole thing is over, no matter how many rounds we do. But I'm going to take this opportunity at, what is it, round 5?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take this opportunity to spotlight women's wrestling specifically, how far it's come.
That was where I was going to go, and I want to share, as you were saying that, we had a Twitch comment come in from David T saying, seeing lots of 80s, 90s, does anyone have any women wrestlers?
As a matter of fact, David T, I do. I'm going to go with, again, in my era of watching wrestling, it went from you let them have 5 minutes to you let them go out there for a stipulate, like a bikini match, something like that, a mud bath match, to then finally giving women a chance to actually show no, we can actually wrestle. And the two women that I think did that for me were Lita and my pick at number 5, Trish Stratus. And I went with Trish over Lita because Lita probably, from a technical standpoint, is the better wrestler, but Trish came from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Trish didn't have a background in wrestling. She was a ballet at the beginning of her career, and she went from that to being arguably one of the best wrestlers of her generation.
Yeah.
She inspired how many of the female wrestlers that we see today that are just doing it, So I'm going to go Trish with number 5.
Yeah, Trish was 100% hard work and charisma. I mean, she was nothing that we had ever seen at the time in terms of workmanship and success as a legitimate women's wrestler. Changed the game in so many ways. Like you said, is always cited as an influence for today's current roster, who is obviously off the charts. Sanch, Tivey, what do you guys think? You like the pick there?
I love it. Yeah.
I would have loved either Lita or Trish there.
Yeah,
They're-
absolutely.
Revolutionize the
Without a doubt.
game.
There are a lot of women who deserve to get drafted in this show, and only a small handful of them who deserve to be the first one to go. I think Trish, I know Trish is in that pool, and I think she's the right pick there. Love it. John
I crush
really
on her. I crush
highlights
on her
the,
so hard, man. I'm still crushing on her.
She looks
Her
great.
strategy.
Good.
from Tessin Albert to getting the loudest pops in Toronto. That is a career trajectory like I've never seen.
TNA.
Yep.
Jesus. Tivey, you're on the clock, my man.
Yeah, I like that we're talking about female wrestlers. And my all-time favorite, which I'm just gonna throw out there now, is my next pick. The most badass woman in all of professional wrestling, the first female intercontinental champion, China. I gotta say, when you have the Attitude Era and you have, you know, DX and NWO, there's a lot of similarities. But one thing that always stood out to me was China, not just in terms of like her physique, she was like super imposing and all that sort of stuff. But once she started breaking out from DX and became like a singles competitor, her pops were massive. Especially, you know, like when she was a Miss Kitty as her like ballet kind of thing. You know, she was doing so well, and it's a shame, you know, where her career went. But some of the matches she had in Japan following her run in WWE were super solid. So it's worth checking out on like YouTube. But yeah, I love China. It's a shame that she wasn't able to see this appreciation while she was here. But
She would have been watching this show if she was still around, and she would have
Yeah,
heard this.
for sure.
And she had a damn bazooka, which was pretty
Like,
bad.
come on, yeah.
Look,
Can't beat that.
China's peak was at a magical time in the industry when everybody was over, and even
Yeah.
at that time, she was over. Like, she was rock star over, and is right up there with Trish in terms of the way that she influenced and changed the trajectory of women's wrestling, and really forced, I think, the audience at the time to take it seriously. Because it had really never been presented in that light before. Women were not presented as legitimate competitors and equals to men. And China came along and said, "Excuse me, I'm here to change your mind," and she did. And the audience bought it. You know, they're not going to invest in anything that they don't believe. And you look at China and you look at her in the ring, and you believe it. Sanch, what do you think?
She was a badass chick, man, and she could kick all our asses.
Well,
She was slamming big ass dudes, and she's a legend.
yeah,
Every
agreed.
pick so far, it's all legendary. I can't hate on any of them.
Good stuff. Deep pool to choose from. Sanch, you're on the
course.
clock.
Am I really? Oh man.
Surprise.
I'm gonna go with the hardcore legend Mick Foley here,
Oh,
and I don't think I need to say too much of what the guy has done for the business and how he put his body on the line. Another guy who could switch characters and still be over. Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mick Foley, Commissioner Mick, Santa Claus. It doesn't matter. I constantly, when people say, "Why do you watch wrestling? It's fake." The first thing I do is show them the Taker Mankind Hell in the Cell match and be like, "Tell me this is fake. Tell me you would do this. How fake is this look?"
Mm-hmm.
And just the things he's done from his early WCW run, his Cactus Jack, his matches with Sting, his matches with Vader, and his whole run in WWF, WWE is just iconic. That's why he's the hardcore legend. That's why he's one of the best of all time, and that's why he's on my team.
Excellent.
Awesome.
yeah, that's an incredible pick. And I just, to address the fake stigma of wrestling, I've never understood that coming from people who watch scripted television every week, have their own favorite shows, but then they crap on wrestling. And you know, coming from the background that Ralph and I come from of theater and performance and like fight coordinators and costume designers who then watch wrestling and are like, oh, this is silly. And I'm like, this is what you do. Like, this is just a live in front of an audience version of what we all love as a different form of art. And you know, Mick Foley was the guy who really blurred that line. And again, it's about making the audience believe it. Like there's a certain amount of wrestling that we watch with the understanding that it is choreographed and predetermined results. And then there are occasionally a couple of guys who come along and you're like, man, I forgot for a second, you know? Yep. Like the Scott Hall and Kevin Nash coming over as the outsiders was one of those moments coming into WCW. Mick Foley, perpetually, always one of those moments. He would just push the envelope and push it until you were watching it and you were like, you know, I'm not sure anymore. I thought I knew, and I have this moment of bliss where I don't know, and that's the best time to be a fan.
Yeah. You remember that old school intro? Bodies have been broken.
Yeah.
Careers ended. It's true though.
Yeah, not wrong.
It's as real as it gets.
And he's like the nicest guy ever too. Like if you
I met him a couple times.
Yeah, so nice. So cool.
He's on that short list of top tier successful wrestlers who have not been outed as dicks in recent years.
Yeah. I mean, he did hit on one of my ex-girlfriends. Fun story at a meet and greet, but whatever.
That just means you both have great taste, right?
Like, he was old and fired up, so I can't blame the guy.
That's awesome. That's a pretty high claim to fame. But yeah, man, never heard anyone say a bad word about Mick Foley. Love to see him go off the board here in the 5th round. And I think it's a pretty good transition for my next pick in terms of blurring the edges of what's real, what isn't, what is in the scripted world of wrestling, and what is being influenced by the fans. And we saw something real when we saw the meteoric rise to success of Daniel Bryan in the WWE. I am taking him here. I had never seen anything like his story. I was out of watching wrestling at the time, and that pulled me back in. It was one of those moments, I think, in wrestling history where you were watching it and you were like, I'm seeing something that's going to change the business, and it has never really been done before. I mean, everyone watching this knows the Daniel Bryan story, so I don't need to get into it, but it was the most compelling thing I had seen on WWE television probably since the end of the Attitude Era. So I'm happy to take him here at the back of the 5th. What do you guys think of Daniel Bryan?
I love it. I sat front row at AEW with my boy Seb when he had his match against, Hangman and Prudential.
Yeah,
and I was just blown away, man. I've seen him wrestle live a few times, and just even on TV, he's one of the best technical wrestlers you could ever speak of. Like the guy just has it in his blood.
Yeah, one of the all-time greats. Like, not only is he a great personality, again, and a great success story, but he got to that position because of his abilities. This was not just somebody that the fan base put on their backs and pushed to the top. This wasn't a Goldberg Ultimate Warrior. This was a guy who deserved his spot and could outwork anybody he was in the ring with, and made everybody look good. So, Ralph, that brings you back up, man.
That was a great pick, Greg. I mean, a guy who literally had to push back on so much. You know, he went from undesirable to undeniable. Mm-hmm. Is the way I like to put it.
Well said.
A guy that didn't have that necessarily because he took to wrestling as a second career and took to it like water. Okay, seamless transition. I'm talking, of course, about the man who won a gold medal with a broken neck. The Olympic hero, Kurt Angle.
That is such a steal.
Wonderful.
One of my all-time favorite wrestlers, like hilarious, intense, one of the best workers maybe in the history of wrestling.
Yep.
And he did it at a time when he had to retire from Olympian wrestling, and just that, like, you're hard pressed these days to find someone who knows Kurt Angle more as an actual Olympian wrestler versus a professional wrestler. And it's crazy to me to think that he spent more time in TNA than he did WWE, because it felt like he was with WWE for forever.
Yeah.
One
Incredible pick.
One of the best heels. As a kid, I loved to hate him. When I got older, I just realized I was watching greatness. The stuff he could do in the ring, the personality, him coming out with the milk truck, spraying. Oh man,
Dude,
there's
Kurt
so many
Angle,
epic moments.
The
all-time
tiny
natural.
cowboy hat.
He was born for professional wrestling. And it's crazy to think that somebody who was born to do one thing also went and won a gold medal in legitimate amateur wrestling. Like, there was nothing that guy couldn't do. Obviously one of the best athletes to ever come through the company, but there have been a lot of great athletes who came and failed in the WWE. It takes a lot more than that, and he had all of it in spades.
Yep.
Great pick, possibly one of the best, all-around choices on the board, and you got him at the top of the sixth, so congratulations, and I hate you. Shout out to my buddy Drew, who just commented on YouTube, "Am I the next pick?" He wrestles locally under the name Lucas Finnegan and has been appearing on WWE television as an extra, eating chair shots and boots from Brock Lesnar. He's one of the security guards in the Roman Reigns angle. Drew, I thought you had him last time, man. I really thought you had a shot, but last second he caught you at that chair. Might take you at the back of the sixth. We'll see how the next few picks go. Tivey, you are up.
I'm starting to struggle a little bit because I'm trying to figure out, like, do I want to go like heavy hitters or do I want to go, like sort of high flying?
This is where it gets hard.
This is when it gets difficult, but it gets like a little exciting too, right? One of the most exciting performers that I think we can all agree on, Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy
Was my next pick.
I don't really have much to add to it besides saying Jeff Hardy, but he's one of the most exciting guys.
Just hold your breath. Those TLC matches, those ladder spots, those swanton bombs, like he's just badass. That's all I can say about Jeff Hardy.
Especially in that Undertaker match, where Undertaker kind of raised his arm at the end. I mean that was just so cool.
That did more for him. And I mean, that's what he needed, right? He needed that legitimate rub from somebody who would make the audience take him seriously as not just like a light heavyweight and like a stunt, TLC kind of guy, but he needed somebody to take the audience's face and grab them and say, pay attention to this guy as a world champion competitor. And that's what he did. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite matches, Jeff Hardy was one of my favorites when I was growing up and watching wrestling as a kid, who was on the smaller side. I was always like, yo, if that guy can do it. I mean, he could do a lot of things that I couldn't do, but I was like, if somebody that size could succeed in a world of giants, there's nothing that I can't do in my life. Love the Jeff Hardy story for the most part. Guys, what do you think of the pick? You want to weigh in?
One of my favorites too. My favorite high flyer of all time.
Yeah,
and that's high praise.
Two of my three personal favorites, Razor Ramon, Jeff Hardy, both off the board. I got neither of them. I might take mine third and final one at the back of this round. We'll see.
If Jeff's first match in WWF was against Razor when he was
serendipity.
Keith Davis.
Jesus, I forgot about that.
I'm gonna go with a guy still taking bumps to this day, an absolute legend. I'm gonna go with the icon, a man called Sting. There's not too much you can really say. There is a lot you can say, but all you have to do is say his name when it comes to pro wrestling. From the Surfer Sting gimmick all the way, late 80s, early 90s, WCW, that whole run. Then it was actually Scott Hall who came up with the Crow gimmick based on the movie, which kind of like pushed him to new heights, made him like dark and mysterious. But in the ring, the guy just had it all. So many epic matches. I'll bring back other, Cactus Jack, Vader, just Steamboat, like so many epic matches for Sting. The guy's like 60-something years old, still taking table bumps, loves professional wrestling, always put his heart and passion into it. And I think I just got an absolute steal with getting Sting right here.
Yes, you did. One of the best to ever do it. Another guy who did not get a proper WWE run, but did not need one. He came in for a cup of coffee and a paycheck, but really his legacy was built outside of that company. And I don't even know what else to say about Sting, man. I mean, one of my first favorite matches was the Bash at the Beach. Who's the third man, and Sting really just his salesmanship in that moment in that match really just helped make that. I think. Tivey, Ralph, Sting thoughts.
His matches with Flair, legendary.
Flair.
Oh my God!
How could I forget Flair with Sting? Like, the list goes on and on. You get spend hours just going back on classic Sting matches.
There are not a lot of, no pun intended, guys who are iconic enough to take right after Sting without feeling like it's a step down in tier. So I really need to think about this one. I had someone who I was going to take, but putting him next to Sting, now I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, Giant Gonzalez is out of the question now.
Yep, he's off the board. I was. That's where I was going. I just crossed his name off my sheet. Giant Gonzalez is not going in the back of the six.
You could take David Arquette. Triple Cage.
More world championships than some of the guys on this draft board already.
It's a damn shame.
I am going to take. Oh my God, I'm tilting. You're killing me, Sanch. I'm going to take this opportunity to remind everybody that we are a call-in show. 618 fan line. You can give us a call anytime you want. Weigh in on the picks. Tell me who to draft in this next pick. But since nobody is on the phone helping me out, I'm just gonna do it. I'm taking Chris Benoit. I'm gonna wait a couple of seconds and see if WWE staff takes us off the air. Okay, I think we're still good. So Chris Benoit, everybody knows the story. I don't want to get into it. I'm drafting him as a wrestler, not as a person. It has been enough years where I don't think that I have anything else to add to the discourse around what happened at the end of that guy's life, about what he did, not what happened. But that being said, probably the best pure worker that I have ever experienced in my life. He was, while he was alive and working, he was my favorite in the moment. Obviously, my feelings have changed in recent years. But if we're drafting wrestlers, it's hard to leave a draft without Chris Benoit. You guys can add anything you want. You can just pass and keep the draft moving. I know we don't want to harp on it. Obviously, one of the worst moments in the business and for those families, but
listen, it's a touchy subject, but someone had to do it. We're talking in-ring pro wrestling. The guy was one of the best. That moment with Eddie at the end of Mania 20 or whatever with the confetti is just like such a touching moment.
That was the other reason I took him, was I wanted the Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit set on my team. And now I got him.
As you know, it's a damn shame. Vice, Dark Side of the Ring, they did an excellent job with that documentary. Real tearjerker.
Yeah.
But if we're talking in ring, I feel like a list couldn't be complete.
Yeah.
Without
for anyone who
Rabid Wolverine.
I doubt it, but if anyone's watching this and is not super familiar with Chris Benoit's story, it has been told many times out there by people who are going to tell it better than us. So, Google is free. Go check it out. But Chris Benoit was a one-of-a-kind talent, man. He was one of the best there was at what he did, and he knew it. Didn't need the big personality. It was in him as an intense personality. That always really resonated with me. Like, he was no nonsense, and there were guys who tried that and were boring. But for some reason, it just worked for Chris Benoit. Like, he was magnetic. He just drew you in. And I loved watching him until I couldn't anymore. So, Ralph, that puts you back up, man.
Okay. This is another aspect of wrestling that's also very, very important. It's the talk show aspect of a professional wrestler.
Okay.
There have been great ones over the years, but they all are a cheap imitation of Piper's Pit, and of course, Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Yeah,
that's such a good pick.
That's
Roddy Piper,
good.
Top of the 7th. R.I.P. Also, an actor late in his life. I always enjoyed seeing him pop up in movie roles and TV shows and things.
They live great movie.
Guys, want to talk a little bit about Roddy Piper?
I was gonna. I'm looking at my list and just backspacing. He's one of the best heels of all time. I actually not long ago just finished reading his autobiography, and it was a mess. But the stuff that he went through because of his love for professional wrestling is incredible. I don't know, just amazing. And like you said, every talk show imaginable on the in WWE it's never going to amount to what that was. So
trying to recapture the magic of Piper's Pit.
Of course. Yeah.
Nobody ever will, to be clear.
Nobody.
No, Happy Corbin or none of these people.
Oh, dude, if anyone's ever come close, it was Happy Corbin. Don't you sully the good name. I'm kidding. I'm going to make an executive decision as we're in the 7th round here. I think we're going to go all the way to 10. We're moving pretty good, and there's just too many great names left on the board. Tivey, that brings you up, man. Your 7th round pick. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with the American Dream. Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to see him go because he was somebody who I kind of missed out on my fandom. Like, I didn't have a personal experience with Dusty Rhodes, but I recognize that he's one of the greats. So I was hoping somebody would take him.
In terms of like
talk a little bit.
mouthpieces, in terms of like mic work, and we're talking about in-ring ability. So not the greatest in-ring worker, but despite all of the things going against him, like his physical appearance, all that sort of stuff, like he
minor details like that.
Through. Yeah, I mean, like he is top tier, and I'm a big fan of like those like NWA kind of guys as well, like those blue collar kind of workers, and I don't know, I just am taken aback when I see some of his promos that he's cut, and what he did for wrestling in the long term with the NXT guys and all that sort of stuff is really, really cool.
Absolutely. Love the pick. David T wants to know if anyone drafted the Brooklyn Brawler.
It's been discussed.
He's been discussed. He has not come off the board, but he has gotten a shout out about a half an hour ago. I believe we were discussing Doink. Guys, you want to weigh in on Dusty Rhodes before we move on to, I believe, Sanch's pick here?
Hard times, Daddy. Amazing pick.
Well said.
Well, baby, you can't have a list of the greatest wrestlers of all time without Dusty Rhodes, baby.
Yep.
Yo, I was like, did Dusty Rhodes just call into the show? But no, that was Ralph. I was checking my phone line, like, who? How?
I mean,
Sanch, you're on the clock, man.
I'm gonna pull a shocker. You're gonna go Dusty Rhodes. I'm gonna go someone in the family. I'm gonna go with Goldust, Dustin Rhodes, man,
Nice.
because he doesn't get the love he deserves. Like, that Attitude Era would be a little weaker if it wasn't for Goldust and some of the stuff they pulled back then, and some of the stuff that would never fly today. But the gimmick was kind of weird and crazy, and I think that's what drew me in. I think that's what drew me into him, and his in-ring stuff is so underrated, and like, he just needs to get some love, and that's why I'm giving him the love right here.
Another long-lasting legacy pick. He's now in AEW. It's doing much better. Do you want me to put him in as Goldust or as Dustin Rhodes?
It's got to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Goldust.
It's funny when
changed it.
When I think of Goldust, it's always Attitude Era Goldust in my mind. But then I go back and I watch tapes from like, kind of the earlier era, and he was around then. And then like I'm watching like, late 2000s and he's there. And then I'm like turning on the TV today and he's there working. And I'm like, this guy's just timeless. Like, he was always there and relevant and good. Like, early Goldust was pre-Attitude Era, and he just transitioned into it like, oh, this was made for me. But he was there succeeding before that, in kind of the late era of the comic book characters. Just a guy, again, who could roll with whatever was happening in the industry and knew how to take it and make it work.
That backlot brawl with Piper, man, was something special.
I'm not putting him in a Stardust. Or
No
7.
Seven. We get 7, but we don't talk about
No,
7.
God.
We don't talk about 7. He's going on the list with Bruno and who else was it? I should be writing this down.
I gotta say though, with Goldust, him and Booker T, some of my favorite
Oh my
stuff that
God.
WWE ever did. And I love those odd couple tag teams, X-Pac and Kane.
Hurricane
Booker
and Kane.
T, yeah. Kane and Daniel Bryan. We could definitely go on, but I love Booker T and Goldust in their interactions backstage and in the ring. But he's phenomenal. Once he like got in shape, he was good.
The man can
Really
go.
good.
He could still go. That match he had with his brother in the early AEW days, one of the best.
5-star.
5-star.
Well,
Yeah.
as soon as we wrap this up, I'm going down a YouTube rabbit hole of old Goldust and Booker T promos. You just gave me the itch, Tivey.
Well, there's
Watch
one
those
match
old
that he did in
promos.
WCW that was like on the back of these trucks. I forgot what it was. Like a
I remember
trailer
that one.
match,
Yep.
right? Terrible. It was a mess.
My favorite Goldust, though, has to be after he got electrocuted by Randy Orton. He would like,
He was just stuttering.
yeah. A promo he cut with Triple H where he couldn't get out what he was trying to say, and he just said cornbread.
Yeah.
randomly.
So ridiculous. Yeah, if you have a free hour to burn at night, you're trying to fall asleep and you don't know what to watch, just pull up YouTube and just look up old Goldust segments and stuff. It
Yeah.
was just, again,
The
no
stuff
pun
with
intended.
Razor.
But He was a gold mine. Yeah, with Razor.
Look up the feud with Razor. That was next level. Like you could love him or hate him, but it was entertainment, and he's one of the greats. So
Like again, you don't think of Goldust as having been around and relevant when Razor was in WWE as Razor Ramon, but he was there. Like he's just a time traveler.
Yeah.
Man, I think Tivey has inspired me to draft Kane here at the end of round 7. Feels like a steal, but everybody at this point in the draft, just again with 4 people picking, these kind of guys are going to fall to the 7th. Kane is one of the best ever to do it, and I'm glad to grab him here. He's somebody who was part of, I think, the greatest storyline in the history of professional wrestling. I put Undertaker, Kane, Paul Bearer up there, along with like the Hulk Hogan, Andre kind of stuff with $1 Million Man buying the second referee and the Hebners and stuff. Like those 2 are the greatest moments, I think, in storytelling, scripted storytelling in wrestling history. And Kane easily could have just kind of came in and been like a flash in the pan based on that storytelling, but he held his own for years, for decades. He deserved to be there. He deserves to be on this list. Another one of my personal favorites. He was just so cool. Like there were so many different directions they could have gone with him creatively. He could have come in and just been like burned to a crisp and looked like, terrifying, but instead he looked like a superhero. Like they could not have designed him any cooler, and Glenn Jacobs just played him to perfection. It's hard to act with your face covered and with every inch of your skin covered, but you looked at him and you're just like, oh my God, that guy's from another dimension, like just the way he carried himself.
100%. And when I was like in 3rd grade, I was like, this shit is like completely real.
Yep. My first wrestling show I ever went to in person was Monday Night Raw. It had to be like, I don't want to throw out a birthday because I don't remember what year it was, and so I don't know how old I am, but I was young, like maybe middle school, and I went with a group of friends, and it was all of our first time going. And what I remember the most about that trip is a friend of mine who was afraid of Kane's intro. Like he was really easily scared. He was like, I don't know how I'm going to do with the fire when that comes out. And he was so worried about it the entire night. And then when it happened, he was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. But just like, that's what Kane did to you, because he reached through the TV and made you feel like, oh my God, I have to spend all night being afraid for when Kane comes out, because that is his storytelling as a performer. Ralph, what do you think, man? Kane.
My opinion, best debut in the history of wrestling. Iconic moment that as a Shawn Michaels personally favorite wrestler, but watching that Hell in a Cell match, pulling for Shawn and then Kane helping Shawn get the win. I loved Kane right from the beginning.
Yeah, Kane's debut is up there for me with Chris Jericho, so I'm just drafting the all-time all-debut team on my roster.
Fun fact,
David T says if you haven't watched the WWE series Dinner for Three, you see the wrestlers as people sit down and hang out and talk about old times. I've heard great things about that, and I keep forgetting. So thank you for reminding me to check that out. I'm going to write it in my notes here. Sanj, what were we going to say?
You say Kane is kind of like a superhero. They actually put a cape on him in the very beginning.
God,
he only wore it for like 1 or maybe 2 house shows. There's like a couple rare pictures.
Yeah.
The ultimate comes with the Kane.
And it also before he got established, it was Kane with a C. On his first shirt ever, it says it's Raise Some Kane, but it's CAIN. And then I guess they kind of
might have been too close to Raising Cane's, the restaurant. But I also remember Undertaker's original name was Kane the Undertaker, so they were just determined to use that name somewhere in Undertaker's story, and they figured it out. So good for you, creative team. Ralph, you're on the clock.
What round is it?
We are entering our bonus rounds. We are at the 8th round. I'm going to bring up our board here so we can kind of keep track of where we're at.
Wow. Okay.
So do you guys want to each take a moment to kind of read through your roster top to bottom? Ralph, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. Your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler, Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
The Texas Rattlesnakes, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Macho Man, Randy Savage. Kenny Omega, Trish Stratus, Kurt Angle, and Roddy Piper.
Love it. Tivey.
Yeah, we got the Excellence of Execution, Bret Hart, the Phenom, the Undertaker, Ricky, the Dragon Steamboat, my sort of wild card, Jushin Thunder Liger, the incomparable China, Jeff Hardy and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby.
Thank you, Tivey. Just a reminder to everybody watching and listening that we do release these episodes as audio podcasts the following day, so it'll be up tomorrow morning. If you're listening to it as a podcast, it's today for you. But we like to recap these just because you're not looking at the screen reading this with us, and it's hard to keep track of this stuff. So, Sanj, tell the podcast listeners who you picked.
I got the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, as pick 1. Then we went with the People's Champ, The Rock. We have the Mastodon Vader at 3. The Bad Guy, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon at 4. Hardcore Legend Mick Foley at 5. The Icon Sting at 6. And Shattered Dreams Production with Goldust. Round
It's
7.
a great team. John Urbanski weighs in. I think he was talking about Raising Cane's when he said great dipping sauce, but now that I'm reading it out of context, I choose to interpret it as an exclamation, like something surprised him and he said, great dipping sauce. And that is a terrible transition to my team, which is Hulk Hogan in round 1, Andre the Giant, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Daniel Bryan, Chris Benoit, and Kane. No regrets. Everybody feeling good so far? About their teams, you guys
really stacked.
Got another 3 rounds in you?
Oh yeah.
Let's do it. Ralph, you're up.
All right, this next pick is probably it's going to be polarizing. Okay. Because his reign of terror in the early 2000s was not a lot of wrestling fans' favorite thing. Some people thought he was on top maybe a little too long. Some people
I can't believe he fell to the 8th.
He was only popular because he married the boss's daughter. I don't know. He did just retire recently, and I'm glad he's okay now after his heart attack. Paul Levesque, The Game, Triple H. I can't believe he fell to me either.
Sebastian saw you coming.
Terrorizing.
Terrorizing.
That's what you're picking?
Potentially the steal of the draft if we're talking about legacy and
sure.
iconic guys in terms of great wrestling champions over the years. Like you said, say what you will about him booking himself to the title, but he deserved it, man. He carried that belt. He felt like he belonged at the top while he was at the top. His time with DX was some of the best content that we were ever treated to as wrestling fans. He could be funny. He could be serious. He was a great worker, great promo, carried himself well in mainstream representation of the company. Every time I go back and I watch like old, like The Rock on SNL, like there's Triple H as well, like being a brand ambassador and just one of the all-time greats. I don't think he deserves all the hate that he gets about, marrying the boss's daughter. Like, where would he have gotten without it? Probably still would have been one of the best champions of all time. Yep. Sanj, Tivey, what do you think?
Another one you love to hate. Such a good heel, man. Some of his Mania matches were awesome. There's so many.
And his entrances.
The dude came out the Motorhead. Like, would you not be shook if he's coming out jacked up, spitting water to Motorhead? I'd be shook. I'd throw in the flag as soon as I saw that.
Yeah, that's a big loss for my all entrance team was Triple H. I feel like he really would have been a cornerstone. David T throwing in some suggestions that I'm going to leave off the board for now in case anyone wants to pick them. I don't want to spoil them. Sanch, Tivey, you're on the clock.
Yeah, that was a great pick. Triple H has been one of my favorites. Hunter Hearst Helmsley straight through, I think he's so cool. So kudos on that pick because
thank you, sir.
Fantastic. John Cena.
Damn.
All right.
There he is.
Yeah.
I gotta throw him in.
Had to.
I love John Cena. So there was that period of time when I stopped watching wrestling because I was too cool, right? I feel like everyone sort of had like a minute where they're like, they kind of fall off. And then, I'm like, who the fuck is John Cena? Or who the heck is John Cena, right? And just him as a person, but like he loves the business. He's a company man. There's nothing bad you could say about John Cena. I just think he's fantastic,
Yeah,
So.
I agree. Another travesty of a steal. There's going to be a lot of great champions going in the back half of this draft. Just think if we had cut it at 7 or 8, Triple H and John Cena would have gone undrafted. But here they are getting the recognition they deserved. Maybe not as our personal favorites, but kudos as some of the greatest to ever do it. That's where those guys go at this point in the draft. You guys want to say anything before we move on to Sanch about John Cena?
Big match, John.
Big match, John. Yeah. Sanch, you're on the clock.
John Cena was my pick, so I'm gonna go with I'm gonna tilt a little and
The
go
prototype.
with the guy who had one of my favorite who had one of my favorite matches against Cena. I'm gonna go with CM Punk here.
Oh,
And, it takes me back to what the Ring of Honor days, man. The Summer of Punk. I don't know if you've ever seen that DVD.
Yeah.
If you haven't, go get it. Like those matches with Samoa Joe, just iconic. And then coming to WWE, blew the roof off the house. The Jeff Hardy, the John Cena matches. There's the Undertaker. There's just so many classics this man has put on. He's still doing it. The loudest pop of all time, I'm pretty sure, is when he came back to AEW in Chicago. And you know,
it's right up there with that one Stone Cold pop.
You either love him or hate him, but he's a damn good pro wrestler, and he's, you know, the cult of personality.
Guys, you want to weigh in on CM Punk?
He brought me back into the fold.
Yep.
CM Punk was like the guy. And I think he was the one that brought my attention. And then Daniel Bryan a little bit later, like solidified it. And I've just been rehooked since then. I feel like those two were what made like modern wrestling just so good.
Was it
CM Punk's amazing.
The pipe bomb promo?
Yep.
Yep.
But then that opens the doors. Like, who is this guy, right? So then you go back and you see everything that he did prior to, and you're like, oh my god, like I was sleeping on this. What was I missing?
Well, look, as long as we are taking this round to draft some of the best champions of all time and get great value on them in the 8th round, I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Greg Scalera, and I'm here today to draft Brock Lesnar in the back of the 8th round, one of the all-time greatest forces of nature in the industry. I can't believe I'm getting him this late. Big Brock Lesnar. He's another love him or hate him guy. He's one of the best ever to do it. I don't even know what to say. He's Brock Lesnar. I mean, look at him and you will understand. Guy has had success in legitimate fighting, in pro wrestling, in professional sports to some degree. He was another one of those Kurt Angles who could just do anything that you ask him to do and be successful at it. Guys, where are we on Brock Lesnar? How did he last this long?
He's a genetic freak, man. And I'm loving the new cowboy gimmick that he's got for him.
Dude, he looks great. That's such
probably
a good
my
look
favorite Lesnar gimmick. Or the Here Comes the Pain Lesnar was pretty badass too back in the day. There's not too much. I mean, I can't say a bad thing about him, but even if I could, I wouldn't want to. Because and there's no problem with that guy.
There's some polarizing opinions on Brock Lesnar. I hear this one a lot. He's good at what he does. I feel like he's overused and stuffs talent they could use. I think it's hard when you are running a company to have Brock Lesnar and not just keep using him. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be taking this time to develop new talent and push them. But again, like when you have a Brock Lesnar, it's so tempting to just put him on TV every week and keep enjoying the money. I like him best. I agree. I think I like him best when he's used sparsely as an attraction, almost like kind of like the old school Andre the Giant approach, where he shows up every once in a while and just kills everybody except for the one guy that you're going to push, just comes in and slays the dragon. That's not really what Brock Lesnar is at this point in his career. Maybe someday when if he ever gets older to a point where he can't work anymore, which that's what, 70, 80 in Brock Lesnar years, he's going to be coming in and doing jobs for people. I don't know. He's a freak of nature. I love getting him in the 8th round. Can't believe he's still here. Ralph, top of the 9th.
Predictions for Sunday first. Brock or Roman? What you guys got?
Well, I got Roman, and then The Rock comes out.
And then they set something up.
I want to set up a year-long feud. I want it to end with Roman going over Rock
in LA at WrestleMania next year.
That's what I want.
It's funny because my boy Sebastian's brother said the same thing. Like Roman's gonna put Rock, like end Rock's career, one last match, WrestleMania in LA, a year from today. So we'll see.
Writes itself.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, if they don't do that at this point. And I think there's a world where they don't, just because we're all expecting it, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna subvert your expectations," but it's right there for you.
But that's what it's like.
We want that. I'd be pissed if that doesn't happen.
Don't be Game of Thrones.
Oh God.
I will also take Roman Reigns to win that match, for the record, since we're saying our predictions on the air where we can't take them back. Give me Reigns in that one. Ralph, you're up.
It's tough to not go against Brock because he just did an interview with Local Sports Talk this past week, right? Where he was talking about the first time in his life he was ever shook. It was a bull moose was just charging him. And
I hate when that happens.
The talk show host goes, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "Well, I just pulled myself together and I shot him." It's like such a bad, such a bad badass, But I am not taking Brock Lesnar. I am taking who I am
the
picking,
bull moose.
my 9th overall pick, the bull moose. No, Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns is inarguably one of the best things going in WWE right now.
Yeah.
He's truly put the company on his back. He's doing some of the best work of his career. I think finally the audience perception of him and the character that he's playing have finally lined up, and it's just brought out the best possible entertainer he can be. I'm all about Roman Reigns these days. He's my pick. He's who I think is winning.
And I think he'll be remembered as one of the best of all time, years from now. We're living in that era where he is making history, and I don't know if casual fans realize it, but people who would tune in every week and love to hate him are gonna miss him when he's gone someday. What do you guys think of Roman Reigns?
He's badass, man. I was on that wave. I wasn't feeling it at first. I remember when they were editing the booze out, shoving them down our throats. But the new, he can talk. The new look, everything he's got going for him. I agree with you. He's badass, and I'm really excited for that match on Sunday.
The definition of coming into your own, right? Because they tried to push him. That has not done the trick for everybody in the past. Lex Luger never came around and came into his Roman Reigns character. There have been guys who, no matter how many resources the company puts behind them, it doesn't click. And with Roman Reigns, it clicked in a way that I think only probably a few people in the history of the business will ever see that kind of success.
It was sort of like an on and off kind of thing too, right? So you have the Shield, and then you have the singles run where Dean Ambrose, right? And Seth Rollins, they go on to do really cool things within the company. And obviously they've since found themselves even more. But Roman Reigns had that lull, where he just didn't shake the Shield vibe, same theme song. And I'm really happy for him. And but I'm happy for the product itself that he is where he's at right now. And I think it's crazy to think that he's basically going to be a legend at this point.
For as much as the fan base was against him, he's such a likable guy outside of his wrestling personality, right? He's overcome so many health issues and things, and just such a warrior. It seems like a legit dude who loves the business. Obviously it's in his blood, in his family. It's the kind of guy I like seeing succeed. So love the pick, Ralph. Tivey, you're on the clock. Yeah.
Oh man.
Nice.
Nobody gets hired.
RVD, Rob Van Dam. I wanted to, obviously there's his WWE career and Impact and all that sort of stuff, but there hasn't been really any ECW love, I feel like. But he's one of those guys. He had just such a crazy move set. Down to his attire, just, ever changing with the different airbrush, but he was so exciting.
As the theme song said, he was one of a kind, man. He was one of the most original characters we ever saw on any platform. Did he have one of the, how many rounds are we doing? 10? Did he have one of the 40 greatest careers in wrestling? I don't know, but 10 out of 10 people who look at these lists when we're done, he is one of their favorite wrestlers. So you're going to get their vote every single time, man. He deserves to be in any draft. Love RVD. He was another one because I was a big Jeff Hardy guy. I liked everybody like that, right? I liked all the smaller guys who were really creative, artistic, thought outside the box. RVD was that and more. Sanj, I know you're a big fan of the pick.
I got sniped. I wasn't expecting him to go there. Back when I was a kid, my AOL screen name was RVD fan 420. I had no idea what 420 meant. I was a kid, but I was just, Rob Van Dam. Nobody gets hired. 420. My dad's like, what's that number mean? I'm like, Rob Van Dam. He's so cool. I love the pick, man. That's one of my favorites. I thought I could wait. Great minds think alike. I'm going to have to go AJ Styles here.
All right.
Beautiful.
Get a little more modern. He's been around for a while. Those indies, New Japan, like even before WWE was already TNA. He was a legend, and then he comes into WWE and he carries SmackDown for a long time, and he's had so many big matches. I'm expecting another banger coming up this weekend with Edge, and the guy is just. When you talk wrestling, you got to put AJ Styles in that conversation because he's just one of the best to ever do it, and I'm happy with the pick here. Late AJ Styles. I didn't get out Rob Van Dam, but I'll definitely settle.
AJ Styles, another one of those guys who's just perpetually at every point in his career in the conversation for the best wrestler currently working in the world all the time, just regardless of his age, of where he is, of who he's working with. Some guys you just watch and you're just like, they're noticeably better at this than everybody else who I've ever seen. Guys, what do you think of AJ Styles?
Yeah, between like him and Omega, I feel like just two of like the best modern wrestlers, you know?
Yeah, tremendous pick, especially in the middle of the ninth. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That puts me on the clock. Knowing that I only have two more picks, I think that this is the right time to pull the trigger on somebody who I'm not going to let go undrafted. And I saw a lot of chatter for this individual earlier in the chat room. I am going to make you all happy and take Lita off the board here at the back of the ninth. Coming up as a big Hardy Boys mark, obviously, Lita was always on my radar, but I feel like she did so much to distinguish herself apart from that. Like, it helped introduce her and get her over, but she established herself as one of the greatest individual workers I think the company has ever seen. I mean, she was right there with Trish, obviously revolutionizing women's wrestling in that era when it was so hard to do it, like so difficult to break out of the stereotypes because they were such a big part of the brand at the time. And Lita and Trish said, you know what? We're going to do our own thing. We're going to put this movement on our backs and pave the way for future generations. I love Trish too, but if I had to take one of them off the board, I would have gone with Lita first. It's a matter of personal preference. Always thought Lita was cooler, loved her style, loved her work, and happy to get her in the ninth here.
I was hoping she fell to the last round for me. That's who I was gonna take. I love Lita. She's
not
so
gonna let
badass. It happen. You got another one on me. So
she was another one. Like the difference for me again, and it comes down to believability. Like when I looked at Lita and Trish, I was like, this is somebody who worked really hard to get really good at what she's doing. And I love, I respect what she's accomplished. And Lita, I look at her, I'm like, that's just who she is. Like she came in like this, like in my head canon, I was like, she was always cool. She always kicked ass. And now she's in the company doing it. And that's who she is inside and outside of the ring. It just seemed natural with her, Just live the gimmick, as they say, as the kids say.
Out of all three of the TLC trios, it's the Hardy Boys with Lita, my favorite out of all of them. Like,
hands down, yeah.
It's just a crazy electric feel they had to them, just jumping off everything, doing so many crazy spots, and Lita's an excellent pick, Greg.
Team Extreme was must-see TV back in the day, man. Ralph, your theoretically final pick of the draft here, round 10.
Yeah, and it's so tough. There's so many great Japanese wrestlers out there, so many great English wrestlers, Canadian wrestlers that obviously we can't get to all. It's just four guys making 10 picks. But there's one Mexican wrestler, and this is going to be the steal of the draft right here. I'm just right now. That did things. It was my first experience with Lucha Libre as an American wrestling fan. Did things that, if you go back and watch, still take your breath away. Absolute legend, Rey Mysterio.
Oh man, that was my pick. Now I'm tilting already.
He was also gonna come with me at the back of this round if none of you took him.
Had to happen.
Ralph, loved the pick, man. Another one of my favorites, predictably, as a kid growing up, and another guy who. He's not somebody I think at his peak who I would have predicted to have such a long-lasting career just because of, big guys traditionally can last a little longer because you never age out of being big and strong, right? I mean, you shrink a little bit, but like you still step in a ring. Kevin Nash entered the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago and you looked at him and you're like, that guy could still win the Royal Rumble because he's huge and he's still huge at this age. Yep. Guys who move like Rey Mysterio, you don't expect them to be able to do that forever. And he's not, he's not what he was, but he's still incredible. Like, he's great. And it's just somebody who works hard and takes care of his body and knows what he's doing. And is just one of the best to ever step in the ring. Tivey, you want to weigh in while Sanch tilts?
I'm tilting hard.
No, I had to like revisit. I had to look at the list again.
Ralph just blew up this entire last round of the draft.
A little bit. But I got to say, I thought you were going to go Ospreay. I thought you were going to go Will Ospreay.
Another
I thought Dominic Mysterio was going, but
but no, Ray is. You can't really add more to it, But the match, the Halloween Havoc match with Eddie Guerrero, obviously. I mean, that's my favorite attire too that he had.
Yes, David T.
David T says they had a ladder match for the custody of a child. What a messed up match. Yeah, of all the stipulations that have happened in professional wrestling matches, that
they
might
have
be
a figure coming out for it too. They have a little Dominic toy coming out. So
that is so extra.
He's a Build-A-Figure.
Are you getting him?
No.
I don't believe you.
No.
Oh my god.
Well, Tivey, you're on the clock whenever you're ready. It's a big decision here.
It is. There's like 3 that are just like bouncing around in my head, and
we'll give some honorable mentions after the draft finishes.
Yeah. He's not a Nugget, but he's my final pick.
Oh, nice.
Owen Hart.
Very nice.
The late great Owen Hart comes off the board in the 10th.
Bookend it.
I love it. Brett and Owen, 1st and 10th.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Match.
There's a lot to say about the end of Owen's life and the tragedy and what it took away from obviously his life and his family. But one of the greater injustices, I think, is the way that it shortened his career. I mean, he would have been, and already is, but he would have been, I think, unquestionably talked about as one of the greatest of all time. I mean, imagine him at the height of the Attitude Era and the things that came after. Just, he did not get to have the legacy that he was on his way to having as a wrestler. And I'm glad to see him go here and get talked about. Tivey, anything else you want to add to Owen Hart, Sanch, Ralph?
I think it's great that AEW is bringing his family into the fold with like the Owen Hart Foundation. I think after Dark Side of the Ring, Martha Hart saw how much the fans want Owen. So like now we're gonna get action figures. He's gonna be in the video game. Like they have the tournament coming up. Like we have merch. So like we, selfishly, we get a piece of Owen again. But it's a shame that he wasn't able to perform with those guys that were coming up. You know what I mean? Like we were gonna be getting, like the Radical guys, like the Eddie and Benoit, those guys coming in the fold. That would have been amazing, but it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, going back to the internet wrestling community issues that we were discussing at the top of the show, it always makes me uncomfortable to hear Martha Hart vilified.
Oh God, yeah.
But she's not sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm so determined to keep Owen's legacy separate from wrestling." She, is having the experience that she is having, and we don't deserve to tell her how to experience losing your husband. And
for sure.
We'd all do the same thing if we were in her shoes.
Oh my God, yeah. And like you said, the Dark Side of the Ring stuff, I think, really helped not necessarily change her mind, but show her a different point of view on it that I don't think that she was necessarily exposed to through most of the fallout from Owen's death. It was a side of wrestling that genuinely cared about Owen as a person and not just what he did in the ring that she might not have enjoyed him doing at the time anyway. It was a community that cared about the man, Owen Hart. And I don't know that she ever got to really see that as it was happening, but better late than never. I'm glad she's seeing how much we loved him as a person, besides just a character. So Sanch, that puts you back on the clock, man. How do you follow Owen Hart?
I'm tilting, man.
Whatever you say, you're a terrible person.
Yeah. Basically.
Because you didn't say Owen Hart.
I got this. This is a shout out to my home state and a shout out to my boy Seb. I said Vader was the #1 big man of all time, in my opinion. I'm going to go with another top big man. I'm going to go Bam Bam Bigelow right here. I'm going to go Bam, the beast from the East, Bam Bam. Shout out Sebastian. We have this thing going on where I'm Vader and he's Bam Bam. We think we walk around like we're badass, but another guy who could just do crazy, crazy stuff. crazy stuff for his size. I'm a Giants fan, and he did not deserve to lose to Lawrence Taylor. I'm sorry. It was Bam Bam Bigelow. Give me him at pick 10. Shout out New Jersey. Shout out Sebastian. Beast from the East. That's how I'll wrap up my team, and I'm very happy about it. Got some muscle. Got some size at the end.
That's such a good pick, man. Only do with a full head tat. I think that's true. I'm going to need somebody to vet that and let me know. Because I can't remember everybody's head tattoos off the top of my head, but it seems like he is the only one with a full head of ink. Bam Bam was another one of my personal favorites. It's hard not to like him growing up in Jersey. He represented it so hard and was so proud of it. Lost him too soon, but he was another guy who you look at him and you just like don't understand the physics of how that guy moves in the ring. And he was a big top rope guy. Like you don't see that. You didn't see it back then. There might have been other guys who could do it and chose not to be taken seriously as a giant. And Bam Bam was able to walk that line and say, yes, I am huge and I could throw you around and I can also jump off the top rope and squish you. Ralph Tivey, any memories, thoughts of Bigelow?
One of the most underrated superstars, maybe wrestlers of all time. Huge in Japan, huge in ECW. Such a good worker.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. David T is comping him a little bit to Keith Lee. I like that comparison because he's another one who, like, it's shocking. Like, jaw drops when you see what they can do in the ring and kind of look at the size of them next to the other guys in there. Great worker, great man, says Seb on YouTube. Love that pick, man. And I'm stalling because there's look, I have the last pick in the draft, so I'm going to shout out a couple of big names who are not going to go here, because I'm going to use this slot for another one of my personal favorites. But if I was picking legacy, I'd probably take Edge here. Surprised not to have seen him go. One of the most accomplished guys in the history of wrestling. I think that he probably peaked when most of this group specifically was not watching as hard as we did, maybe before and after Edge's time, right? Like, is that a safe assumption?
Yeah.
Rated R Superstar was one of the times that I was kind of away from wrestling. And then I came back and all of a sudden he was one of the most like decorated individual wrestlers. Cause I was a big Edge and Christian fan back in the day, but I wasn't around for world champion Edge. So I don't feel like I can comfortably pick him here and sleep at night. Like, I don't feel like I deserve to pick him. But just shout out to Edge because he's one of the greats. Mr. Perfect was a little before my time, but I want to shout out Mr. Perfect as long as we're talking about the best workers of all time. Dude lived up to the moniker. He's another one who I just used to watch old tapes of, and I was like, this guy is so much better than everybody he's in the ring with, but he was making them look good. I mean, a really underappreciated talent. But not amongst people that you talk to in the business. Like, Ralph, you call Ric Flair your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler. You could probably make that case for Mr. Perfect too. There were just so many guys. Mr. Perfect.
Throwing Jake the Snake too.
Dude, Jake the Snake.
Like it's hard not putting him on a list. Like, it's such a hard pick, Greg.
It's
pressure.
so hard that I'm not going to do it. Jake the Snake is my pick.
There
you go.
I grew up as a huge Jake the Snake mark. Interesting guy with an interesting story, succeeded despite a lot of things that happened to him in his life that he had to overcome and succeed despite of. And he was just such a unique take on promos. That's really what made me fall in love with Jake the Snake back in the day, was his psychology, the way that he spoke to the camera and made me care about what he was saying. Again, it was another moment of like, the rest of the stuff is fake, but Jake the Snake, there's something going on with that guy. Turns out there were a lot of things going on with him, but like, the greatest characters in wrestling are the people turned up to 11, right? That's what they always say. And I feel like Jake the Snake kind of invented that. So I'm happy to take him here. Again, I don't know that he has one of the greatest 40 careers in wrestling, but he is one of my favorites. So I'm taking him because it's my show and I can draft how I want. And he goes at the end of the 10th here. Is there anyone else you guys want to shout out who didn't make it into the draft?
Ravishing Rick Rude. Shout out
Yeah.
Rick Rude. Shout out
Yeah.
Walter. Shout out Kota Ibushi, Kenta Kobashi, Mil Mascaras. There's so many.
Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins. Like, I was thinking about him at 10. If this was a few more years down the road, he'd probably be a little bit earlier. I think he's gonna have a fantastic match tonight, hopefully against Cody, and I'll be really happy. I'm
looking at my board. There's a lot of guys who I think it depends who you're drafting, how these drafts turn out. Like
Yeah.
Ultimate Warrior, Bill Goldberg probably would have gone in a lot of drafts. I think that is just not our style here. But again, it's a matter of preference. I think Randy Orton's probably the best all around wrestler to not go in this draft. He was one of my backup plans for this round. I'm a big Dean Malenko mark, but he didn't deserve to be drafted. But I just want to give him a shout out because I love Dean Malenko.
If we went to like 20.
Yeah.
The enforcer, Arn Anderson.
Arn Anderson.
Block Anderson now.
Yeah,
if we were drafting wrestling theme songs, the Four Horsemen for me is the 101. That's my favorite intro song of all time. David T chimes in with Batista and Alexa Bliss. And I would want to add Charlotte there in terms of modern women's wrestlers.
Becky.
I gotta say, I'm a big Sasha guy. I love Sasha.
Becky, Sasha.
They're great.
Is Sasha Banks of The Mandalorian, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. As a matter of fact.
I was gonna throw Vince in my list.
You know what? I would have loved that pick. I would have loved that pick. I said before that Hulk Hogan was the greatest heel of all time, but I think you can make a good case for Vince McMahon as
he's not going to do anything.
Vince is the best heel.
Yeah,
he's crazy.
You can't beat the boss. You can't beat the boss.
Well, I'm going to throw up our list here one more time. We'll close it out by reading our teams. Ralph, take us through top to bottom.
All right. The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, Kenny Omega, Trish Stratus, Kurt Angle, Roddy Piper, the Game Triple H, Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, and, of course, Rey Mysterio. And you got the Junior in there. Good job, Greg.
Oh, that's such a good team. I feel uncomfortable putting this up to vote. Tivey, take us through.
We got Bret Hart, Undertaker, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Jushin Thunder Liger, Chyna, Jeff Hardy, The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, John Cena, Rob Van Dam, and Owen Hart.
Feel good? Feel good about that?
I do feel good. Yeah.
I love them both. I love them both.
You probably should. Sanch, who you got?
With the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. We have The Rock, the Mastodon Vader, the Bad Guy, Scott Hall, Hardcore Legend, Mick Foley, the Icon Sting, Goldust, CM Punk, AJ Styles, and the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow.
Dude, you just can't say Goldust's name normally. You have to deliver it. I'll close this out here. My first round pick, the Immortal Hulk Hogan, followed by Andre the Giant, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Daniel Bryan, Chris Benoit, I apologize, Kane, Brock Lesnar, Lita, and Jake the Snake Roberts rounds out my team. That's a good looking draft, fellas. I think we did well.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on the groups we took off the board here? I almost said the guys, but there's some legendary girls in there too.
Yeah. Pro wrestling's awesome.
Pro wrestling is the best.
Excited. I'm so excited for WrestleMania.
Yeah, dude. I hope some people who tuned in for the first time will join us. We do more crossover drafts like this. First Saturday of every month, we do a different genre. We did video games last month, which are also the best. Wrestling was today. We're gonna do bands in the future. I think we're doing a Pokemon episode down the road because we're nerds.
Wow. Nice.
A lot of crossover. Ralph, maybe someday we'll do beers because I know there's a lot of crossover and interest between craft beers, wrestling, and football.
Oh, dog.
Yes, sir.
We do
Tivey,
XFL. There we go. Boom.
Oh yeah, for sure. Tivey, why don't you take a minute to Tivey plug your channel? Let the people know one more time what you do and where to find you.
Yeah, you can check my work out at World Wrestling Flashbacks on Instagram. I do toy photography. Our stuff's been used for Mattel and Jazzware, Ringside Collectibles. Or you can follow us on TikTok at there's a loud ass motorcycle outside. On TikTok at WW Flashbacks, where we do flashback facts, and we also do a lot of action figure giveaways. So join
my favorite wrestling content follow. I can vouch for it personally. Go check them out. Ralph, tell the people about your show.
So formerly in Hops We Trust, now in Hemp We Trust.
Get out of here.
We go around to different breweries and tell the stories behind the beers. Now, of course, we're going to be going around to different hemp farms and discussing the stories behind their, you know what? Just guys like
Ralph. You don't have to worry about demonetizing our show because we're not making any money. So the joke's on you.
Be smoking copious amounts of marijuana.
There you go.
Smoke them if you got them.
That's right. And just remember, guys, no matter if you're a fan of today's product or not, WWE specifically, I'm talking about, this is still the most wonderful time of the year. You know, it's a spectacle. It's going to be a good time. Just enjoy it. It's pro wrestling, baby. Come on.
Well said. Enjoy it, everybody. Sanch, you have any closing words before we sign off here? Go watch some Mania. Oh, Sanch is the crow. So for our podcast listeners, he is breathing into the mic and wearing a Sting mask, and he looks awesome.
Anyway, that's it, man. WrestleMania weekend. Crack some Steve Weisers, smoke your hemp, whatever floats your boat. Watch some badass pro wrestling. You know, enjoy it. This was such a good time. Great to meet both of you.
Likewise.
And
yeah, I'm sure we'll have you back sometime, maybe during the season. Once Tivey is a fantasy football expert, he's going to come in and give us some takes in season. Thank you guys for joining the show. Thank you everybody who tuned in and listened, whether you're watching us live, whether you called in to talk to us, or if you're listening on the podcast tomorrow, which is today for you. We appreciate you. We hope you come back. We are Fantasy Fan Line. Once again, during the NFL season, we will have fantasy football experts on our show every Saturday of the season. But in the off season, we're doing first Saturday of each month with our crossover episodes. We'll probably do a couple of football off season episodes too. There's a lot to unpack. We'll talk some NFL drafts. We'll talk some draft season stuff once we hit August. A lot to do, a lot of fun to be had ahead. So we hope you join us. We are at Fantasy Fan Line on pretty much every platform except for TikTok. We're working on it. Tivey has inspired me. I think we'll get on there. Ralph, are you raising your hand to speak? Or are you...
I just have a quick question. Did you hang your old Mitch Trubisky jersey next to your framed Jay Cutler jersey yet?
No. As much as you're joking, I think you know that I do have a framed Jay Cutler jersey about 20 feet away from me on the wall over there. I'm never going to show it on this show, and I'm going to delete this part of the podcast recording.
Darnell Mooney.
I'm not proud of myself.
Receiver one.
I love me some Darnell Mooney, man. We'll talk. We got a lot of
against the top corner though. Who else you got? We'll see. We'll talk. I can't wait to talk football.
There's still some stuff that could happen. We can maybe get like a Will Fuller for like 4 or 5 games of the year. He's going to be great.
There you go.
Did he go to? No, he went somewhere else. I thought.
Did he? No? That's disappointing. I hope.
Didn't he go to the? Hold on.
Ralph, do you know? Tivey, do you know?
No,
okay.
It says he's on the Dolphins still. I think he's a free agent, so never mind.
All right.
He plays like 2 games though, so I don't think.
Yeah, but it's gonna be a great 2 games.
You're right.
Oh, Amy T chiming in. Woo, good work, guys. I learned a lot. I'm glad this could be educational for you. A lot of people who don't think they're going to be really interested in wrestling, once they give it an honest shot, they find themselves enjoying it. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, we're going to do this first Saturday of every month of the off season. We are Fantasy Fan Line. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah,
See
brother.
you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Woo!